Hello, and thank you for your interest in this presentation I put together on FT8. Right now it is the most popular digital mode that's out there, and it has grown in popularity since it was first launched in mid-2017. My name is Rick Mead, W7VQ, and what I will be doing today is going through a high-level overview of what FT8 is, talk a little bit about the kinds of things that you need to have in your shack to be able to run FT8 between your rig and the PC that runs the software, and a little bit about some of the configuration that you'll need to have set up as well. I'll do this in two parts. The first one is a very short slide presentation that provides some of that overview. And then once we get done with that, I'll close that slide presentation down, and we'll actually, I'll pause the recording. I'll take this into my shack, and we'll see if we can't make some contacts on FT8. And I will also show you some of the basic settings that I had to put together in order to get FT8 working on my rig here. So with that said, I'm going to turn on share the screen. So we are now doing this on my desktop, and we're going to go to that PowerPoint and share that. And if everything goes according to plan, we will now view the slideshow. Okay. Hopefully this is showing up okay. I'll double check that in a minute. Again, this is FT8 Digital Communication, Introduction and Demonstration for Field Day 2020. My name is Rick Mead, W7VQ, and I'm doing this for the Davis County Amateur Radio Club, again for the Field Day 2020 festivities, which will be starting in just a few days. So, the agenda that I'm going to go through today is, first of all, talking a little bit about what FT8 is, what you need to run FT8, basic setup, the configuration that I run, and then I will show some FT8 operation as well. So with that said, what is FT8? Well, FT8 is a mode that was designed by Stephen Frank, K9AN, and Joe Taylor, K1JT, and it uses 8-bit FSK modulation, which is where the name comes from. The F is Frank's, for Frank's last name, the T is for Taylor's last name, and the 8 is for the modulation. It's designed to be able to allow contacts under extreme weak signal conditions. And by weak signal, I mean those that could not even be discerned audibly that they are there. There are a number of other modes besides FT8 that have been developed by, or have been sponsored, I should say, by Joe Taylor, and also with help from others like Stephen Frank, to do things such as Earth-Moon-Earth communications, meteor shower communications, and rain scatter communications as well. When you go out to look at the site where this information is held, which is out at Princeton University, which is where Joe Taylor works, you'll find a lot of interesting information on these weak signal modes, not just FT8, but the others as well. One of the good things about FT8, and one of the efficient things about FT8, is that the signal only occupies 50 hertz. If you go to any of the HF bands and you look at where FT8 is being exchanged, for example, on 20 meters, you'll find it on 14.074 megahertz. At that location, it takes up, there's about a 2K bandwidth of FT8 signals, but each communication path is just 50 hertz wide. So there are several communications going on that designated band and compressed into that 2K slice, and it makes it a very efficient mode. It has a very structured contact format. As I mentioned earlier, with the it is structured, and basically each transmission takes, for FT8, takes 15 seconds. So there is a transmission that's sent for 15 seconds, and then a station will listen for 15 seconds. While it's listening, other stations will be transmitting for that 15-second period. So the exchange that typically goes on is a CQ is sent out. A station will respond to that CQ. Then, assuming that the CQing station hears that response, it will send a signal report. The other station will send a signal report back, and then they will both exchange 73s, and the contact is over. That will take about 1.5 minutes, or can take as little as 1.5 minutes. There are times when it takes 1 or 2 attempts for that communication to go through. Again, this is weak signal, and sometimes propagation can be a little bit challenging, but it is again very efficient and can happen very quickly. So, as I mentioned, FT8 is very popular. This is a chart that's somewhat dated now, that goes from when FT8 was introduced in 2017, mid-year, to the end of 2018, beginning of 2019. And what you'll see here, if you go through this, is that this green bar is where FT8 was released and came into use and was generally accepted. And at this point in time, you can see where the number of queues that are in logs stored in club log has gone up significantly using the FT8 mode. This blue line is CW contacts, the red line is voice, and these are other digital modes down here, PSK31, RIDI, and so forth. So again, a very popular format, something that has really taken off, especially in the low solar cycle. It's been something that's allowed people to make longer distance contacts than they might otherwise be able to make, from their station. So what do you need to run FT8? Well, you need a single sideband transceiver, ideally with digital mode capability that's already built in. A PC with a sound card, can be internal or external. External will usually work a little bit better. If your transceiver does not have a built-in sound card, you can use something like a signal link, for example, to interface your PC to your radio. You'll need rig transmit receive control, such as CAT. If you can use Vox, that's an option, but CAT works much better. It's a much cleaner and less susceptible to challenges. You need computer clock synchronization software, such as the Meinberg NTP for Windows. That's the one that I actually use on my Windows 10 PC. And the reason for that synchronization software is because each of the transmissions, or the listening periods, those 15-second intervals, begin at the top of the minute, at 15 seconds after the minute, at the bottom of the minute, 15 seconds before the minute, and then again back up at the top of the minute. If your clock is not synchronized with the other computers that are on the band, you will have a hard time, and probably cannot, pick up their signals and effectively decode them, because they will start transmitting potentially multiple seconds before you start listening. And again, with the weak signal mode that they're trying to accomplish with this, there is a lot of error detection and correction that is being done as part of this mode. So then you need the FT8 software, which can be downloaded from, and I've got the site here that you would actually go to. If you Google WSJTX and Princeton, you will find this site. I highly recommend that when you do search for the software to download, that you pull it down from the Princeton site for a couple of reasons. One is that from this site, you're sure you're getting the most current release of the software. It is actively being maintained by Joe Taylor and others that are working on the software. Plus the fact that there are some other sites where, when the software gets downloaded, you may find yourself installing a few other things that you hadn't planned on. I always find that a little annoying, and so I try to go to the main source for anything that I'm picking up. Okay, next slide. So basic setup. You're going to need to both first download and install the drivers for your radio or sound card. That has to be installed on your computer. Each radio is going to have a unique set of drivers. Some may be using standard drivers, but for the most part, there are unique ones that will be utilized for the specific radio that you have. You'll want to get those installed and then make sure that they are there and available. The next thing you'll do is install your clock synchronization software and make sure that that's up and running so that your clock is appropriately synced to a standard. You'll configure your radio. That's going to require that you set up things such as the baud rate. You'll be recognizing whether you're going out through a USB cable or one of the other ports in the back of your radio, a data port as an example. You'll install the WSJT-X software. That says software, I just noticed that, so apologize for that typo. Then you'll install any additional tools that you may want to use. And I specifically use the example of JT Alert. Now this is a program that has been, each of these is free, by the way. This is an additional program that has been provided to help people connect the FT8 queues that they're running to their logging software. So what JT Alert allows me to do is actually, once I get done with a queue on FT8, it will allow me to automatically log into my logging software that I have running on my PC as well. And that way I don't have to worry about taking the log in WSJTX, which is an ADIF file natively, and then extracting anything out of that and then putting that over into my logging software separately. So those are the things that you want to do, and I'll actually go through some of the installation parameters with you when we go over to look at the QSO demonstration, which we'll start in just a little bit. So with that said, what I'm going to do now is to talk about my specific configuration. I have an ICOM 7300, which has a built-in audio interface, so that's the one that I use on my connection. And I basically just got a USB connection that runs between my PC and my ICOM 7300. I have the WSJTX software running on my PC. I'm running JT Alert, which provides the interface to log contacts directly to my logging software. The software that I'm currently running is N3JFP. And then I have the audio codec, which I got from ICOM, from their website, for my 7300, which handles that directly. And then, as I mentioned before, I've got the Mindberg clock synchronization software that I installed that runs on my PC, and that just launches when the computer gets booted, and make sure that that clock always stays synchronized. Okay, so with that, I'm going to now stop sharing the screen, and I'm going to come up here and pause the recording for just a little bit. Okay, we're continuing on now with the recording. I'm now in my shack, and hopefully this will be visible to you. This is the WSJT software, and the I'm just going to try to. I need to get it kind of close because otherwise the everything looks a little bit on the fuzzy side. But basically, what we have here now, I'm going to make one other little change here. I'm going to go this way. Okay, hopefully you can see that okay. This is what the WSJT software looks like. This screen right here, I'll take this and I'll move this up and down a little bit. This is the one that is utilized to show both what you're receiving on this left-hand column and what you send out comes out on this side, or stations that you've tried to contact. You will see information from them show up on this side as well. When I was testing this ahead of time, up here where you can see these that are in the rust color, those are communications that came into my station, W7VQ. So a couple of things I want to go over before we try to make a cue. First of all, I'm going to go over here to the file setting, and I'm going to go down to settings. And that's going to bring up this window. Let me bring this over here so that you can see it and make sure that it is visible there. There's a number of tabs that you'll see up here at the top. The first one, which is the general tab, that's the one that it opens up on. It's in this one that you're going to put your call sign and your grid square, indicating where you are. And this is used by basically all of the message formats that are standard, that are set up. And then there's some basic information as far as how you want the display to be shown, what font you want to use, and so forth. I really left all of these pretty much as basic, the way they came out of the box. You'll also see some of these behaviors. Monitor off at startup is not something that I do. And then this transmission watchdog on 6 minutes, I have not figured out exactly what that's for, so I apologize for not being able to answer that. But if somebody wants to ask me that question, I will go figure that out and get back to you. The next one, though, is the radio. This is an important one because here is where you're going to put in the rig that you're running. Up here at the top, you can see that I'm running my ICOM 7300. If you go to this drop down, you'll see a lot of other rigs that are there. All of these will work with WSJTX. And then you'll see some information on CAT control. So the serial port that I'm going to be sending commands out on is on COM3. That's out of the PC. And the baud rate that I'm using is 19200. That has to coincide with what I have set in my radio in the connections side for the 7300. It also has to align with the data bits. So I've got 8 data bits, 1 stop bit, and there is no handshake that is required for the communication between the PC and the radio. Up here on this side, you have got push to talk, which is whether you're using Vox, request to send, or CAT. I'm using CAT control. And then down here is the mode. I have none set. That is that's a default, and it's one that works well for me. And then I've also got on split operation, fake it. Fake it allows the software to determine whether it's going to operate split mode or not. And it has something to do with also with Fox and Hound, which I'll talk about a little bit in just a minute. So that's basically the information that's there. Now you come to this audio tab, and this is where you have to set up your microphone and tell it that you're using this USB audio codec for both the input and the output, which is the output is going to be the speaker going out to the radio. Some information as far as directory information is here and so forth. The rest of these I've pretty much left the way they came. The one other one that you can take a look at is this that says frequencies. This basically, you'll notice here that you've got modes of FT8, JT65, JT9, frequency calibrations, whisper, and so forth. And this shows the frequencies on each of the bands where these modes typically operate. If you've got a DX station that's running outside of what is normally used for FT8, you can add a frequency in here. And where this information shows up, I'm going to close this out now, is down here. You'll notice this says 20 meters. If I were to drag this and drop this down, this is showing right now that I'm on 14074, and that's the 20 meter FT8 band range or frequency that is being used for FT8. Now I'm going to go ahead and leave that there because that's where we're decoding this, this now. The other thing that I would like to show you is this waterfall that's running in the background here. So I'm going to, first of all, I've got to close I apologize if you're seeing this note that just came up. I've got to figure out how to keep that from happening and shut that thing down. But at any rate, what you'll see here on this waterfall, this is where each of the FT8 signals is coming in. So for example, on this one, here's a 50 hertz bandwidth here where somebody is actively communicating, sending out CQs and getting responses back. You have one over here. That is showing up as well. And this is where you're going to find an open space to send your transmissions out. Now while I'm here, I'm gonna find one that looks relatively open, which is right here about 1450. And I apologize for that showing up there. I've got to figure out how to shut that off and I haven't done that yet. My apologies for that annoying. So at any rate, let's get back to what we were talking about. If you put your cursor here by one of these, so for example, if I came up here to 1600 and hold the Shift key down and do a left click on the mouse button, it'll move this little red bar over to 1600. That's showing me where I'm going to be transmitting out. I'm going to go ahead and move it back over here because it looks a little bit more available there. And then I'm going to come back here and go back to this screen and take a look at what we have running here. But I also want to show you this one as well. This is this JT alert that I mentioned earlier. This little matrix here at the bottom is showing everything that comes in. It shows me which stations, the ones that are in green are the ones that are calling CQ. And if I highlight it, it shows me the relatively bearing of that station and where they are located. So if I have a directional antenna, I can orient them, in that case, for example, to 107 degrees. It also will show me if I have worked this station before, for example, this one, you see this is grayed out, this K9IG. I've worked that station before, and since they're already in my log, it shows grayed out there. Try to close that down once more. I'm sorry for that continued interruption. So at any rate, this is the basic orientation. One other box that I'll bring note of here, this one right here, which says hold transmit frequency. I highly recommend that you leave that clicked on. And the reason for that is that if you do not have that box clicked, what will happen is if you click on one of these stations calling CQ, so for example, this one, K9ZW, he is on frequency 917, and my current transmit frequency is sitting at 1550. But if I were to simply click on that, it would go over and I would transmit on top of him, which is not necessarily a bad thing because he's going to be listening when I'm transmitting and vice versa. But if somebody else is calling him, our signals will be competing on that same 50K or 50 hertz slot. And so it's better and it's more efficient if you pick your own open frequency up here in that waterfall and then simply click on this to hold that transmit frequency. So what you'll notice now that's coming down is that this last group of transmissions, let's look at this group of transmissions. These came in at 20:52:45, so 45 seconds on the 45-second mark of the minute. The next one that comes in will be transmitting out at 20:53:00. And there we've got Bulgaria coming up. He's got a -13 as far as signal strength. That's a fairly decent signal. We may try to talk to him in just a minute. So at any rate, that's what you've got going on here. These are each of the stations that are calling CQ, and again, they show up here at the bottom, showing the and I can look at what bearing they are when that comes up. There's Belgium. I'm going to click on him, and let's just see if we can get lucky and maybe make a contact with Belgium. Now, as soon as I click on that, it automatically puts my rig into transmit mode, and I'm sending out over here. You can see this yellow bar. I've sent out to that station my call sign, and I've given him my grid square. We'll see if he hears me to come back. Doesn't look like he did because I just sent that back out again. So what I'm going to do, since he didn't hear me there, I'm going to go ahead and turn off this enable transmit so that at the next 15-second cycle that comes through, I will not transmit up and send him again. I try to not send more than 2 or 3 at the most responses to a CQ if I don't hear anything back from somebody else. Now, if I do see him come back, it'll show up over here on this side with my call sign highlighted in this rust color. And then I'll know that I can double click on that and I can continue on with the call. And let this cycle through one more time. Let's find somebody a little bit closer. KE0, let's call him. He's got a good song signal coming here. Coming in with a signal strength 2 dBs, not even a negative number. So he may actually hear me come back. Okay, he responded to another station right there. So I'm going to turn off this enable transmit. I'm actually going to halt my transmission. You can hear that running in the background. I'll turn that up a little bit so you can hear what this is what FT8 sounds like. I'm going to turn it back down a little bit. And we'll wait for another station comes up. Now, I've made contact with this W9JA before, so I'm not going to try to go after him even though he's sending CQ. We'll wait for another one to come up. Let's see, my antenna is pointed basically in his direction. Let's see, here's somebody that's sending a CQ specifically looking for an Oregon location. And so you want to pay attention to that just like you would any other station that's out there. We'll try this W9ZW, see if we can make a contact with him. Again, you can see here where I've transmitted back out to K9ZW. I've sent W7VQ, sent in my grid square, and we'll wait and see if he picks me up. I'm running about 35 watts, by the way. Okay, in case he didn't hear me the first time, I'm going to go ahead and let this run through one more time, one more cycle out. And we'll see if he comes back. No joy, he's responded to somebody else. So I'm going to hit halt transmission, or enable transmission will turn off, and I will click on halt transmission so that that one stops. Okay, so we've tried a couple that we've answered a CQ. Let's go ahead and try sending one CQ out and see what happens. In order to do that, what you need to do is come over here to these messages that you see. Oh, shoot, this is, again, I apologize for this notification that keeps coming up. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to click on this very bottom to where I'm sending out a CQ from W7VQ. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave this whole transmit frequency on. But the other box that I like to check when I'm sending out CQ is this is just me. I like to be able to send CQ at the beginning of the minute and at the bottom of the minute. That's what this transmit on even and first means. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on, you'll see that this is, we've just done the 15-minute, so we are now at the bottom of the minute, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Enable Transmit. And so what'll happen is when this cycles around the next time to the top of the minute, I will be sending out a CQ. Okay, we just saw this one come in for the 30-minute. And now, here's my CQ that I just sent out, CQ W7VQ, and I sent my grid square out. So I will let that run, and we'll see if somebody comes back to my CQ. I'm sending CQ again. And as with voice or CW, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 to get a response back. Okay, so I just got a response back from WU0U, who sent me back an acknowledgement. So now I have sent him his signal report, which is -19. So I have sent that off. Hopefully he will see that and send me his signal report back. And I have sent him that. He has sent me that again. So we're exchanging signal reports again. I've sent this to him saying his signal report is -19. He apparently did not hear that because he is sending me a query again and just saying, I would like to talk with you. So he's sending to my call sign, his call sign, and his grid square. Okay, it would appear that he is not hearing me at this point. So propagation could be such that we're not going to make this contact, and this is just not going to, there'll be no joy on this one. But we'll see. I at least know he's decoding me, or has decoded me at least one time. And he is not coming back again, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this off now and halt that transmission. Okay. We'll wait one more time through just to see if he happens to have picked that up. And he did. So I'm going to double click on this now because he sent me a signal report of -17. One of the things about FT8, and this sort of demonstrates it, is that it doesn't just run automatically. It does require a little bit of thought and a little bit of patience as you go through this. Not sometimes a contact will happen just 1, 2, 3 and it's done. Other times, like this, it will sometimes take a while. One of the things that I'm doing while I'm looking at this is while this is going on is when I do transmit, I am checking the SWR and make sure that I haven't got something odd going on my antenna. And everything appears in good shape. Oh, we got confirmation back. So I'm going to log that contact. And you'll notice that I have now sent him back a 73 saying we are back together. So there is a contact. Now, one of the other modes that I wanted to mention to you, and this is where he sent me a 73 back. One of the other modes that I wanted to talk with you about is if you go over to the file section on WSJT and you go to settings, you'll find something over here called advanced. Now, if you go to the advanced setting, there is one mode that I want to note to you, and this is this one that says special op mode activity for FT4 and FT8 messages, and it is specifically this one that says hound, and then you can determine whether you are the fox or you are the hound. The fox is the DX station. Any station that's running DX will be in fox mode. Hounds are the ones that are trying to find it. This special mode, once you click on that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back off. Once you click on that, what that means is that you're going to have a DX station that's running down on the low end of the band. And by low end of the band, I mean below the 1,000 cycles. Someplace in there, they'll be sending out a CQ. You have to respond above 1,000 to their CQ. And when you do that in Fox-Hound mode, if they acknowledge your call sign, it will automatically move you back down to where they responded to you in the lower end of the band, and you'll finish the contact information down there. The advantage of that for the DX station especially is it allows them, the DX station, to actually have multiple contacts running at the same time on one PC. So one of the things that you'll notice if you see a station that's actually running Fox-Hound mode is that you'll sometimes see multiple responses coming back to two different stations from that DX station in this area. So that's the one unique mode that I wanted to let you know about. So from the point of an overview of FT8, that's really what I wanted to go through with you today. I think I've covered everything that at least at a high level, that makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and pause this the recording one more time. And I apologize for all of those things showing up. Let me pause the recording. And then, okay, we're back out of the shack, and at least we managed to make one contact going through everything that was happening. Hope that was helpful to just see how FT8 runs. And at this point, I'm gonna wrap up this presentation. I hope you found it useful. If you've got any questions at all, you can contact me via email at w7vq@arrl.net, and we'll call that good for today, and have a great field day. Thanks.